Good afternoon, good morning. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Jason Metcalf. I'm the Senior Business Manager for LED here at Sony Electronics, and filling in for John Garmendi this week as we talk about virtual production and recap a little bit about what happened at NAB a few weeks ago for us. So for those of you who attended the show, hopefully you were able to spend some time at our booth and see our live demos focused on a cinematic as well as broadcast virtual production demo and meet and connect with our sales and product teams. If you didn't have the opportunity to go, we are going to be posting recordings of the live demos as well as the panel presentations on our YouTube page. And we'll put the link in the chat, but it's at Sony Professional USA is the username and one word. And you can see most of what happened at the show, which we were really excited about and happy with the results. Today, we're pleased to present an immersive session focused on virtual production applications, not only within the cinema world, but for the corporate AV space as well. We really feel like virtual production is a tool that can be very powerful for a variety of applications. And we have brought in some special guests to help demonstrate, help explain how this process can be applied to all sorts of different creative spaces. And I want to let them introduce themselves a little bit. So Evan Cervantes from LUX Machina is here with us.
Hello, everyone. My name is Evan Cervantes from LUX Machina Consulting. I'm the Director of Business Development. Today, do you want me to just jump straight into it, Jason, now? Are we good to go? Or do you want to talk a little bit more about Sony before we go a little further?
I just, wanted to give you an opportunity to introduce yourself, and I think maybe introduce Connor as well from Pixera, who's there.
Well, Connor is off here to the side, and
Yeah.
You can't see him yet, but you'll see this handsome man shortly from Pixera, who is... Well, there you go. You got a nice wide view of him here. He'll be jumping in and taking my lav once I'm done.
Thank you, guys. All right, well, let's jump in. So, at Sony, we recognize and understand that virtual production is a really powerful tool. It relies on cutting edge technologies, the highest end cinema cameras, the best performance LED products, advanced lighting products and techniques. Orchestrating and synchronizing all of these technologies is the only way to get an excellent result, but it is complex. And so we know that not only do we need to offer these highly capable products, but we need to also offer solutions that help to tie them together, create an ecosystem of technologies, and also make it easier for users of any experience level to operate. And that is the basis of our presentation today. We have within Sony hardware tools like our Crystal LED products, which I'll talk about in a minute, as well as software tools that help bring together those LED products and cameras and make things like display calibration and camera blocking, shot development and look development much easier for all users. We have recently introduced a new product to our Crystal LED lineup, which is called Verona. This is a product that takes the best of our LED products in the past and brings it into a format that is much more amenable to on-set use, XR, immersive environments. And in addition, we've integrated it with two different third-party LED controllers, both Brompton and Megapixel, who we recognize, both of which have done incredible work developing new features and tools for use in live environments, on-set environments, and many others. And we think that the combination of both the Crystal LED technology and integration with these third-party controllers makes for an incredibly powerful product family. So we're happy to launch it. It's a brand new product for us. We've just finished our first project with it in Stamford, Connecticut with WWE, which we'll be releasing more and more information about. But one of the panels at NAB was focused on that project. The philosophy behind this product, as well as most of our crystal LED line, is about maximizing performance and image quality. We've dramatically increased the black level performance with Verona. We've increased the ability to shoot off axis or reduced the off axis color shift. We've combined that with some physical improvements to make construction and alignment much easier on set. And again, because of these things, we've had a great response on this product, and we're happy to share more about it. On the physical side, we've added things like edge protection to make both installation as well as striking the product uninstallation much easier and safer, reduce damage, and make sure that this product maintains a long, useful life without having to repair it all the time. At a very fine pitch, 1.5 millimeter and 2.3 millimeter, these things are a little bit more difficult to install and take down. And so these improvements are meant to make that much easier. Additionally, we've added some performance enhancements like a much faster refresh rate, 7680 hertz, much wider color gamut achievement. And these features are focused on the integration with the set and integration with the camera, especially. So not only is it going to look much better and give you a lot more latitude with how you design your look and your creative look that you're developing in the camera, but it's going to help to reduce artifacting and scan lines, things like that, with a higher refresh rate and a better multiplex rate. And as I said, the product itself is great. We're very happy with it. Combined with things like the Venice 2 camera, which has been used extensively across different virtual production projects. We think that this sort of ecosystem of products is an incredibly powerful choice. But in addition to that, we know that you want tools that will tie these different products together and make them easier to use. So we've introduced our virtual production toolset, which allows you to bridge the gap between your pre-production work and your on-set production work, whether that's in a soundstage or a in-house creative studio. Before you pick up a piece of hardware, you can do a lot of your preparation work and your development work, which saves you time and resources, and a lot of times you just don't have access to that hardware that early in the process. So we're really fortunate to have this set of tools and to be able to have all of these products under one umbrella, which allow us to develop solutions for this space that span much broader than most other manufacturers are able to do. But beyond these capture and display products, you need to create a operational and content backbone that drives that, and that's where partners like Lux Machina come in with their tools. And so I am pleased to introduce Evan once again, who's going to talk about the Lux Arca system and what Lux Machina does in order to support virtual production projects of all sizes. So, Evan?
Thank you, Jason. I appreciate it. I've lost connection on my iPad, so I'm going to ask you to advance the slides for me once we get there. But thank you very much for the introduction. So you can go ahead and start me off on the first slide here. I just want to give everybody a little bit of a background on who Lux Machina is. We've been around since about 2012. Started working a little bit earlier than that on a little film called Oblivion with Tom Cruise. Here you go. Thank you. Useless now. We started in live events and broadcasts. That's where most of us at Lux Machina come from. Our background is in corporate events, live events, broadcast events, sports, all kinds of things of that nature. Over the years, our founders realized, Phil Galler and the others realized that the technology that was being used in this world could also be used in the film and television world very well. Thank you very much. I think it works again. So we started to adapt LED technology, projection technology into film and television, which is nothing brand new, but the ways that we were doing it was fresh and new. So to move a little bit further, we are technical experts. And to draft a little bit off what Jason was saying, we are partners. Everything that Sony produces is looking to produce a product for its partners. We are one of those partners. We partner regularly these days, but some of the products down here on the slide that you can see, Bullet Train, for instance, done with Sony, Top Gun Maverick, done with Sony, a whole bunch of other projects done with in-camera VFX. And that's what I'm going to talk about today, a term called in-camera VFX. We hear about it all the time as virtual production. We're just going to get a little bit more specific, being that it is in-camera VFX. We are capturing as much as we can in camera during the event. Then we're going to talk a little bit about how this can be used in the corporate world, broadcast, live events, and sports and such. So I will move to the next slide here so everyone can see. Here are some of our pillars of experience, just so everybody has a nice visual. There's live events and broadcasts, sports and gaming. We're across the Emmys and the Grammys and events such as that for screens control, esports and gaming for League of Legends Worlds, Valorant, all kinds of stuff of that nature. Film and episodic, that's what we're well known for. I think our big breakout moment was probably The Mandalorian Season 1. Everyone knows how that was shot on volume. If you think about reasons why, we want to think about reflections. In film and television, if you're trying to avoid as much money spend as you can, thinking about rotoing out a bunch of green at the end of a production is a big headache and a big expenditure. So for The Mandalorian Season 1, it was decided it would be a great idea to have LED technology so we could pick up the accurate reflections. We do a ton of facility integration as well. So these are permanent and temporary stages. We are a consultancy, and our primary source of business is helping companies design, implement, install, and train up on how to use stages, whether that be for a short-term event or a long-term permanent event where you will be reusing that stage regularly. Then finally, there is brand and agency. This is where we're going to get into a bit more conversation with Pixera and 2D work, stuff like car processing, spaceship processing, boats, planes, trains, all automobiles that would require 2D processing is where we're using Pixera today, and that is our choice. So I'll move into my first slide here where we'll discuss a little bit more about virtual production. So I see VFX, in-camera VFX. You're going to see three different rows of images here. The top row of images is going to be showing 2D work. The middle row of images there is going to be showing 2.5D or 2.5D work. And the bottom row is going to be showing 3D. At the top, you can see your camera up on the top left and what it's looking at. It's looking at a flat surface, and it's panning across that surface. And on the right side, on the right column there, you can see what the camera is seeing. And you can see that it's just panning across a flat image. You can kind of tell. Moving down one row is when we get into 2.5D. This is where we start talking about camera tracking. We're taking a camera tracker, putting it on our cinema camera, and now we're working in a game engine or something similar to break apart our layers of content so that we have depth. On the right side there, you'll see what is called parallax, where we're seeing the grass that's closest to the camera moving at a different speed than the mountains that are furthest away from the camera. It's not perfect, but it's very good for some scenarios, and we'll talk about that in a moment. The bottom row there is full 3D. That's the very famous version, the Mandalorian-esque version, where we're taking the camera, dropping it into a 3D environment within a game engine or something similar, and we're tracking that virtual camera along in the environment. On the right there, you can now see that parallax is accurate. Now, I know this is pre-viz content, so it's not perfect, but you can see that the movement is correct. The grass that's the closest moves at a different speed from the grass that's a little bit further away from it, and so on and so forth. So use cases of this range heavily, but I would say a bulk of our work today is done in 2 to 2.5D work, and the 3D work is more specialized than you would imagine. So I'll advance to the next slide here where we'll break down 2D a bit more, and you can see an application, how it was used, and how difficult it is. So if you look at the top left of your screen here, you can see some very simple breakdowns of bars with flexibility of on-site usage, how complex it is, how many people and how much cost there is behind it. This is a fairly easy process to achieve, as you don't need any camera tracking. You need your LED surface or your projection surface, and you need your camera, and that's basically it. And you can see how we've used it here for a film called Red Notice, where we're looking over Ryan Reynolds' shoulder as The Rock holds him outside of a train car. And everything that you see from that perspective over Ryan Reynolds' shoulder is just on an LED surface. Very simple. This is used all the time. 2D processing work, 2D work is used all the time. You can see down there on the bottom left, there's the project Solo, which is, it looks curved, which confuses some people when I talk about 2D, because it is on a curved surface, but we're in an engine like Pixera, so we can model that surface, still put a 2D flat image on it, and have it be recreated in the physical space so that it is believable. And if you talk to any of those actors like Donald Glover, Childish Gambino, in one of the scenes in that hyper jump, I believe he said it was the most convinced he'd ever been that he was actually hyperspeed or going into hyperspace. It's quite spectacular. So a very cool use case of virtual production or in-camera VFX. So now we'll skip over to 2.5D so you can see the next step up in this process. 2.5D being the broken down layers. They're still flat images. There's no geometry here. They're just flat images, but they're broken up in 3D space, closer and further from the source, which is our camera. You can see on the top left there, it gets more complex. There's camera tracking, there's more people, there's a bit more time and a little bit more cost behind it. But honestly, there's not much of a jump between this and 3D. So you can see there in the bottom right, 2.5D works really well for a situation like this, an exterior rooftop. Let's say you wanted to, in film and television, getting permits, getting the weather, holding it for that time period is difficult in the real world. So bringing it into a world of in-camera VFX makes that a lot simpler. And that's what we're looking at here in this environment behind me. It's rooftop environment. It can be quite convincing if used in the right scenario. If you go back and watch Shazam 2, there's a big rooftop fight scene, and that's where you'll see this happen in real time. We use this fairly regularly. Again, this document I can make available to everyone at the end of this chat. We can share it into the chat so everyone has access to it. It's public-facing content. So now that we've gone over 2.5D, that's like kind of the middle step between 2D and 3D. We'll jump into the full 3D scenario. Now you can see all those bars on the top left. They're pretty full, right? We're talking about more time. There's less flexibility in terms of setting up your equipment. You need camera tracking, you need the LED, you need to be framed up pretty specifically, but you have a lot more flexibility with your world if you plan for it. Everything in in-camera VFX for film and television production is about planning. So it's moving all that post-production to pre-production. But we use this constantly for broadcast events, sporting, and corporate installations as well. So what you're seeing here in the top right is the environment that was used. This is special because it's a fairly cheap environment. It was purchased off the Unreal Engine marketplace and optimized. You can see there on the bottom, we can't see anymore because we're breaking the fourth wall, but you can see when the environment comes back up on this loop that we've just optimized a few things to make the environment fit our scenario a bit better. That's Phil, by the way, the founder of Lux Machina, looking quite stellar in his puffy vest. So it'll loop again and you'll see him walking through the room. You'll be able to tell that the space is shifting to where the camera is. So he's getting ready, he's making sure he looks pretty fly, and he's gonna start walking towards camera. As he walks, you're going to see the perspective based on where the camera actually is shifting our environment. He's walking around a corner, he gets to the countertop, and now that's the only practical props in that room. So with in-camera VFX, your options are kind of limitless, right? We can do basically anything with in-camera VFX within, a spectrum of reality. I'm going to skip past this now, and we're going to hop into a couple more slides here, just talking a little bit more about who Lux has worked with in the past and who we continue to work with in the future. If you've heard of Nant Studios, the Lux stage at Trilith, which is down in Atlanta, that's our own stage. It's about 90 feet deep by 80 feet wide, full automated LED ceilings. Perfect for, your quick run and gun productions that need to come in and shoot something in advertising quickly. Used a lot for car process work. Amazon Studios, Dexter Studios in South Korea, and Warner Brothers. There's plenty more as well. Into our final slide here, I just want to talk about what's driving it. What drives everything is a Lux Arca. This is our own equipment that we've developed over the past 7 or 8 years. We've found that there's a huge market of media servers. For all intents and purposes, they're all computers. But what we found is, we could probably produce them for under the price point of anyone else out there. They would be equally as powerful, if not more, because they come with the support of Lux Machina, who's been doing this for so long. And I think that's what's really special about these machines. All the bits and pieces you can get into deeper if you scan the little QR code up there on the top right. And you can always feel free to reach out to sales@luxmc.com if you have any questions for us. And that's pretty much it for the Lux talk. So I'm going to go ahead and pass it back to Jason, and then I think we'll get into talking with Connor.
Thanks very much, Evan. Yeah, I think it's a great point. The media server hardware obviously is important to, ballistic test it, make sure it's reliable, all of that, which obviously you guys have done through many huge projects. But of course, it's the software that's running on it, the UI, all of that is often the most important thing, as many operators I'm sure will attest to. So in just a minute, we're going to hear from Connor McGill, who is that important piece of software running on the media server in many ways. And we have been really happy to see the growth of Pixera over the past 3, 4, 5 years and more. I think early on we recognized the capabilities and the power of this tool, especially one that was detached from a specific hardware platform. And so I know that Connor probably has more to say about that, but we're really happy to have him here. It's good to see you. And Connor, take it away. Thanks.
Great. Thanks. Quick audio check. Everybody can hear me? We just switched labs, and I wanted to make sure that was good. Excellent. Cool. Hi, everyone. Thanks. My name is Connor McGill with Pixera. Here today to tell you a little bit about the product and the company that makes it, AB Stumpfl, and a couple of relevant use cases, and finish on a case study for a project for one of our customers in Amsterdam that uses a lot of the kind of movie making magic that Lux and Sony help develop, but maybe applicable in a kind of a more approachable corporate setting if you don't have the full might of a movie studio behind you. So to begin, I will do a little bit of background on AB Stumpfl and the Pixera product. AB Stumpfl is an Austrian company started by the gentleman up there in the top left, Reinhold Stumpfl, in 1975. He would put on slideshows for his friends and was basically unhappy with the quality of the technology for doing slideshows at that time. So he started tinkering with projectors, and that spirit of tinkering and innovation has led to countless globally successful products, all involved with the improvement of the presentation of visual imagery, culminating today in a number of products, including the Pixera media server. In the bottom left, you'll see a car show in Germany, and you may ask, what does that have to do with virtual production? Well, that blue screen in the car show is a big LED, fine pitch LED screen, and Pixera was really built around this workflow early in its development cycle. And if you think about what the media server is being asked to do, it's playing back high fidelity visual media, whether that's videos, images, real-time content platforms across really large pixel spaces, really reliably and in sync and stably. So if you look at that case study from early on in development, and you look at what an LED volume or an LED stage is doing, they're really not so dissimilar. Today we have offices in London, near the concentration of stages on Uxbridge near Heathrow. So we very much serve that market and the virtual production happening in London. We have our headquarters in Linz, Austria. Outside of Linz, it's in a small town called Wallern. We have our office here in Santa Monica supporting the Los Angeles market, as well as Alpharetta, a northern suburb of Atlanta. Before we dive deep into the film and broadcast and virtual production workflows, I'd like to take a second to talk about some of the other markets that Pixera is at home. Fixed install being architectural installations, themed entertainment, museums, and other permanent large-scale digital media installations. Themed attractions, there's been a lot of press around certain installations in Vegas and across the world that are utilizing immersive display technology. Pixera also has a home in those installations. Film and broadcast beyond just virtual production. Of course, you have corporate shows and other workflows that include cameras, and then live events. So we do a lot of concert touring and hotel conferences. So some of our live events recently, we were featured at the NVIDIA GTC show, which was all about AI. We are out on tour with Chris Stapleton, and we did a big show with Metallica this year in the Middle East. In our fixed install world, again, immersive experiences, as you can see in the bottom right, are very popular, either LED or projection based, providing the user a sense of immersion inside of a room or a space that has imagery on all walls. Is a very powerful experience. You have many airports investing heavily in LED technology to create a sense of place, to give the space an identity, and also to sell advertising. You have tons of LED in Times Square, of course, and we've been part of a number of those installations historically. And then virtual production. So we are part of most of the stages that Evan mentioned earlier as a solution used for 2D plate playback, 2.5D workflows, in some cases 3D workflows as well, and also as kind of a Swiss Army knife, because it's not these stages are not exclusively used for shooting movies. Sometimes there's events, sometimes there's corporate shows, sometimes there's parties, sometimes there's training videos being filmed, and having a tool like Pixera that goes beyond what just something like Unreal can do is really useful for these stages. We were involved with the shooting of Poor Things, which was a recently Oscar-winning film. If you've seen the movie, there's a film on top of the roof that used an LED backdrop, and there's also the scene that's depicted here in the slide on the fantastical cruise ship where Pixera was used to present the imagery of the ocean and the clouds in the background. Some of the other stages pictured here, Amazon Studios in Culver City. That's the Lux stage at Trilith in the middle that Evan mentioned, and then the Nance stage in Melbourne, Australia, in the top left. And shout out for Evan's company again, Lux, in the bottom right. This was Hijack. It was a airplane-based movie that used Pixera and a really innovative workflow that I know they're really proud of, that combines some of the best of real-time and playback that I'm sure they'd be happy to tell you about in a follow-up conversation. So finally, before I hand it back to Jason, would like to discuss a project that we did in Amsterdam, which uses a lot of the techniques of 2D, 3D, camera tracking, custom control integrations, but brings it to a corporate customer into this really unique multi-use space. So this is an event space and studio at the headquarters of a company called Randstad in Amsterdam. As you can see in the top left, it works perfectly well as an event venue with a traditional stage for a panel discussion or a corporate presentation. In the bottom left, you have a transformation into an immersive experience to tell brand stories or to just set a nice backdrop for a cocktail party. And then in the top right, you can see what the camera sees. So the camera uses a technique called set extension to actually capture the stage. And now if you look closely, you can see there's actually a slight color change between a dark blue and a light blue up to the left of the performers. And that is where the camera feed is actually being composited or combined with an Unreal scene to create this sense of an endless set. And this is really useful for them for virtual meetings, for filming product demonstrations, and other marketing video collateral. And then the bottom right, you actually see the operator booth. And again, the photo is fairly small, but in front of the operators, they have a big custom designed touchscreen. And this is the main point that I'd like to get across is neither of those pieces of software that you see are the Pixera interface. They are actually custom web applications that were developed by a company like Lux to present exactly the tools and the creative choices to the day-to-day users of these systems and nothing else. And in such a way, they've created a custom solution for this customer to take advantage of the full scope of this technology's capability of these LED walls, these cameras, these lights, but not overwhelm them with some kind of computer science degree level system that they will inevitably become frustrated with and underutilize. So there is a possibility to bring these systems that are being used for the cutting edge of Hollywood and global filmmaking into other environments and build out custom workflows that are approachable and that are accessible for non-technical users. Happy to answer any questions you have. I think later on there will be a QR code for our Discord server, which is a great way to get in touch with us and stay up to date on products and Pixera news. But for now, that's all. Thank you, Jason. I'll throw it back to you.
Thanks, Connor. I think that your point about the use in these other spaces, I don't want to call it non-traditional, but outside of a soundstage, filming a film or TV project, that is some of the appeal, I think, for Sony to be able to offer these technologies, these processes to a wider audience. In a moment, we're going to get to a Q&A section. So if you do have questions, please put them in the questions chat, which should be on the right side of your screen. But I wanted to have Jamie Raffone come on for a moment and talk about the relationship between Sony and Lux and Pixera as a as a part of that as well, as she has really been driving that relationship, the development of that relationship for years now, and to talk a little bit about what we can offer through Sony in combination with Lux. So, Jamie.
Right. Thanks, Jason. Yeah, I think, one of the reasons that this makes sense and why Sony chose Lux to start this relationship and this partnership is because we value that best of breed. We make beautiful products, great imaging technology, and we need somebody that understands and values that as much as we do. So when they can put that into a working system and add value, like the ARCA, the design, the managed services, it helps build out that ecosystem for Sony. So it's less about us selling boxes and it's more about us selling solutions. They were instrumental in helping us develop and test our virtual production tool sets. So as we continue to evolve the hardware piece of the cameras and the LED volumes, we can add those software components that really help add efficiencies to that entire workflow. This is something that they've been a great partner with us in the DMPC, where we do a lot of this testing where they are today. They helped design and build out our demo center there. So that was a wonderful collaboration. And then, of course, all the projects and the end users that we touch really mesh well with our vertical focus, right? Outside of these big feature films, we cover education, house of worship, corporate, broadcast, all the same customers that they're targeting, and even some unique ones that we're starting to develop relationships with as well. The other thing that I think is really important, is we bring in other partners. We have this ability to share the space. So they're an expert in virtual production. They may not be an expert in digital signage installation or cinema camera configurations, right? So they'll bring in or work with one of our other SI or AV channel partners. And now we've been able to build out a much more collaborative partnership to bring to the customer base.
Thank you, Jamie.
I think key word here today is partnership, right? And I think that, Jamie, thank you, and Jason, thank you. You guys have been some of the best partners that we've ever had the opportunity to work with. But one of the superpowers of this group is we work so closely together. So, if something needs changing within Pixera, if there's a hitch or something that we need custom built for us, we can reach out and call Connor directly. And that day, there are changes being made. And it's the same relationship for Lux from the Sony end. If Sony needs something specifically, they can reach out to Lux. And like Connor had talked about earlier, we can develop custom tools or help Sony in sussing out problems with custom tools so that we can better democratize this technology so the whole world has better gear, kit, and solutions to work with.
Yeah, thanks for that, Evan. I think sometimes, partnership is something that people pay lip service to, but it's that, it's that collaboration that is, I think, true partnership and what we're excited about working with all of us together. So, okay. Well, so we do have a couple questions in the chat. One that has come up a couple times is about content creation, and as always, one of the heavier lifts, more expensive parts of any project, especially one that involves virtual production. And so, I think we've touched on this a little bit, but the question is, can we use our existing green screen content or in-house content, or do we need to be developing new totally new 3D environments or new content for 2.5D? And so I know, Connor, you touched on this a little bit, but maybe you could talk about how that has played out for you guys in the past and that benefit that Pixera can bring to projects.
Yeah, thanks. So having access to content is I think one of the critical aspects of having a successful production pipeline. Just content creation is expensive, whether you do it in pre-production or in post-production. So being able to reuse assets and utilize content in different formats is critical. A product like Pixera handles that by optimizing our render engine to be able to handle anything you might have in ProRes or Notch LC or as a Notch block or an EXR image sequence, and making sure that the rendering environment is flexible enough to handle all of those different formats. When it comes to reusing kind of the cache of creative possibilities, I would hand it over to Evan. I'm sure he has more ideas about the actual creative process, because we're a step removed from that. So I don't know, Evan, do you have anything to say?
Well, I think the simplest answer to your question would be on a macro level, which is your environments, if they already exist, are still usable. The way in which they become usable changes depending on what kind of content it is and what the end goal is with it. But again, speaking on the macro level, I mean, the whole reason that this has become so popular is the amortization of content that does exist. And whether that content already does exist or you need to create it, it's the possibility of reuse, specifically in a corporate environment or a product environment. Being able to create digi-doubles of, let's just say, a vehicle, or choosing a corporate environment that fits very well for interviews and such that you need to reuse. There's no storage cost, right? You've produced your content, you can now store your content, and you can recall that content, further optimize it, make small changes, and that content is forever. So that is one of the biggest powers of this whole workflow. Lux is stepping into content creation at the moment, but historically, we again use partners, right? It's dependent on what kind of content you're looking for. Will depend on what partners you are seeking to create that content. Long answer for a short question. Your content is reusable. Yes.
Thanks, Evan and Connor. I think it's important to, we're talking here as a group of, 3 different entities, but, it is a broader network that I think each of us has access to. So as we work on projects, as we support integrators and end users, we would extend out to bring in maybe a specific content creator or somebody like that. So this is a great one. I think that Connor can touch on. Kevin Burke asks, what is the difference between Pixera and Unreal? Can both be used in an XR studio? And I think you're going to have a great response to this. So thank you.
Yeah. Unreal is a content authoring tool, and Pixera is a media server, which is meant to host different types of content and make it easy for a user to decide what goes where in a live environment. So I would compare something like Unreal more to the Adobe suite or Resolve, where you're spending time creating an environment or creating a piece of content that you then finalize and put into production. Now, the reason that the line has become a little bit blurred is that Epic has decided over the last several years to invest development time into making Unreal have some media server functionality for the film and TV industry. So you can actually use Unreal Engine as the operator front end for playing back an Unreal scene in an LED volume stage. It doesn't mean that it has all of the tools that you would want it to have in every circumstance. For example, in a lot of the live broadcast workflows, multi-camera switching and compositing, and you're using things like AR or set extension, Unreal doesn't have those features natively, and that's why they use products like Pixera, Stipe, Pixatope, and some others. But in the context of an LED volume, we find that a lot of customers like both, because the features that Unreal has added into its engine in the last couple of years make it very suitable for certain workflows, like the ones that Lux has successfully implemented for projects like The Mandalorian. But then there's also things like car processing and non-film work that require more flexibility than Unreal Engine can bring. And Pixera can actually host Unreal Engine, or it can work in tandem with Unreal Engine on a server like an Arca to be able to provide users with both. Hopefully that was helpful. I don't know.
Yeah,
I think just to further confirm everything that Connor just said, the Lux Arca natively will come with Unreal and Pixera on it. That is how frequently used Pixera and Unreal are to our processes. They work in tandem or they work separately, but we are basically using both on nearly all of our productions.
Thank you, guys. Got one more that we can address, but maybe Evan wants to weigh on as well. Martin Calvi asks, how critical is it to use a global shutter camera for virtual production? I think from the Sony perspective, obviously most of our, if not all of our cinema cameras are rolling shutter, but the technology with sensor readout has progressed to the point that it's happening very, very quickly, to the point that Venice 2, even though it is a rolling shutter camera, has an incredibly fast sensor readout speed and is being used broadly on many different virtual production or LED wall or display integrated projects. I think that's from our perspective. Evan, I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
No, I would agree completely.
Yeah, it's the technology's progressed quite a bit. There's great global shutter cameras out there, but I don't think they're the only choice for this kind of work. Maybe one more. I think there are a lot of facilities that they're not going to invest in a 50,000 square foot soundstage for their office or their facility. How do they get access to these spaces, these processes without a huge capital investment? I think that is maybe what we were talking about earlier about the network that we're each connected to. Maybe Evan, if you want to take that.
Yeah, so there's tons of options. That's the kind of the beauty of this technology is you're not limited by your space. You're limited by your goals and your creativity. We're not in a large space right now. I mean, this room is probably about 35 feet deep by about 18 feet wide and about 12, 13, maybe 14 feet tall. So you are able to work within the constraints of your environment for sure. if you do not have a large CapEx budget, which, happens to a lot of companies, you can also do short-term rentals. Those types of scenarios do exist. Lux Machina is part of a larger group called NEP. I'm sure a lot of the people here watching this have heard of NEP. NEP has access to one of the largest stocks of LED globally. So a large majority of our work outside of installations at Lux Machina is short-term pop-ups, as we call them, or short-term builds. So if you have an itch that you want to scratch in this world, there is always the opportunity to reach out to a company such as Lux, specifically us, because we're very good at what we do, and we can help provide you with a short-term solution to test out what you want to test out. We've done things in rooms as small as 10 foot by 10 foot for test pieces and for conferences and expos. We do that very regularly. So you are definitely not limited by your space, and there's always opportunity to do a short-term pop-up instead of a long-term CapEx purchase if that's the world that you're in currently.
I think, Evan, if I can jump in, Jason, one of the things, maybe we're jumping the gun a little bit, but I know we're excited to talk about this. Going back to that partnership, right, and Sony's technology and Lux's ARCA solution, we've been working on some bundle packages for scalability, right? There are a lot of non-feature film applications for virtual production, and we recognize that, and we want to make sure that we're making it accessible and scalable for those smaller spaces and easier to operate, because not everybody's going to, come up with that capital and be able to invest it, but then still have to have the operational budgets to hire all of the experts and the resources. So these bundles that Sony and Lux have put together, I think, are addressing a lot of those concerns and solving some of those problems. So I don't know if you want to take a minute to talk about any uniquenesses and how those will be available very, very soon. But I thought this was a great platform to at least announce it and let people know that it's coming.
Can we cut to that little deck? I know I shared a link with the team here that we were going to share to the group, so we can actually drop a link into the chat, which will direct you to the deck that Jamie was talking about if you want to take a look. I don't know if we can put it up here or not, but yeah, I can talk a little bit about it.
Great.
Being that smaller solutions are much more attainable, we did put together a little deck that will show you a couple different use cases and the costs associated with procuring an entire setup, from something as small as an expo setup that would be an exterior to a window, let's just say. So you can imagine like a Tide or a Bleach commercial or something of that nature, where you're in a kitchen and you have a window to the house, and outside the window, now we put a small LED setup that can have 2D content playing on it, via Pixera from an ARCA. And that solves a lot of traveling scenarios for expos for a lot of companies that want to have modularity and reuse capabilities that are believable and high end. So that link is going to get shared in the chat. I'm not sure if we're going to be able to bring it up, but please do help yourself. Visit that. Take a look. There's 3 different setups there. We've done a very small setup, which is the exterior of a window, all the way up to a larger immersive camera tracked setup. Here are the QR codes right here. The top left one is going to take you to that deck specifically. The top middle one is back to the ARCA. Top right is Pixera's Discord. Yeah,
Absolutely.
Cool.
Yeah, thanks, Evan. I think not only will we send it on the chat, but once we post this to our YouTube page, we'll have links to each of these. And and on that same note, there were some requests for slides, so the presentation will be posted after this. So we'll have the audience will have the ability to reference back as well. So I think this was fantastic. Thank you guys both for being here. We did have one last request. Catherine Crawley is asking for a high five. Can we get a high five?
To you, Kathy, or to between Connor?
Well,
all right.
To you guys, we can do remote too.
Thanks for watching, Kathy.
Thank you all. Thanks everyone for being here. We will be back on May 21st to talk about collaboration tools and next-gen audio and visual solutions. But again, please use the links on the YouTube page, or we'll have access to the viewership afterward as well if you want to make contact. Thank you again for being here. I hope you all have a great rest of your day. Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.